How many people have seen this advertisement before? Or something similar? Very common one. You'll see, send me a stamped addressed envelope and we can have you working from home sending envelopes to people and businesses, and they promise to pay you so much per letter, right? It's a scam. It's a scam. Another common scam is where someone, I think the bank lady talked about it in the last segment, somebody will send you an email and they'll say, you know, our company in England, it's a common one, or our company in Nigeria is in need of an agent in Canada. We have $4 million that we have to transfer. And you know, you're a trusted person, you're a trusted personality. And if you do this for us, we'll reimburse you with 10%. And all you have to do is deposit that money into your bank account and immediately write a check and send it to us for $3.5 million. And you get to keep $500,000. Wow! How many people would fall for that? You'd be surprised. A lot of people do. A lot of people do. And what happens is you deposit the $4 million, you write a check for $3.5 million, you think, wow, I'm going to be $500,000 in the bank, and everything bounces. And guess what? You're on the hook for the money. You have to pay it all back. So not a good prospect. So why does financial abuse occur? I've put the first one up there for you. This is going to be an interaction thing today, guys. I'm not going to do all the talking. You're going to help me out here. So why else do you think financial abuse occurs? Just yell it out. Yell out some reasons why you think financial abuse would occur. It's easy. People are vulnerable. Yes. Yeah. Another reason.
People don't have another job, so they go to turn to this.
Yeah, there's a sense of entitlement. Yeah. People don't want to work today. They don't want to go out and do the 9-to-5 job that everyone historically has been used to doing. You folks all did that, right? I've been doing it since I was 18 years old. My gosh, I got 41 months left before I can retire. My gosh, I'm just waiting for that. Okay, so directly through a power of attorney. Can everybody see that, or am I in the way? Joint bank accounts. I don't know if it will work over here. Controlling access to documents through a friend or a family. Emotional and or physical abuse is usually in tandem with financial abuse. Financial abuse never really occurs alone from the perspective of a police investigation. And it usually is accompanied by threats, intimidation, and some form of physical violence. And that can be, you know, anything from a common slap to locking you in a room and doing really horrible things to you. Isolation and susceptibility, I talked a little bit about that. Elderly people, especially when they live alone. You know, we grew up in a world where a handshake was, it was a promise. And when someone presents themselves at your door, if you're, you know, not accustomed to having visitors, your family may live away, they may live close. They may not be as involved with you as they should be. So when a person shows up and they dress nicely and they speak well and they come into your home and, you know, they visit once and then they come back with coffee and muffins and they're going to sit and listen for 3 hours, you're more than likely to buy things from a person like that. And it happens. That's how they make seniors victims. Home renovations is a big scam. And cold knock approach, we're going to talk about that. Does anyone know what a cold knock approach is? A cold knock approach is, I come to your door and I knock on your door and I say, Mrs. Smith, I've been looking at your roof as I was walking by, and my contractors are in the area today, and you know, your roof, it's going to need doing in the next year. Today is a good day, you know, it's not raining, we're at the end of the summer season, we need to get it done quickly. And I can give you a great deal. I can do it for $10,000 cash. It's a long time since you bought a roof, right? It's not something that you're accustomed to pricing every day. $10,000 for the size of your home may seem like a good deal. They're going to take all that stuff away. I'm a good salesman. I can convince you. I'm going to bring a dump truck in here. I'm not even going to leave an itty-bitty nail on your driveway. Sounds like a good deal, right? That's a cold knock. So other causes, the senior is isolated or living alone. I talked about that a little bit. They can't drive, they're not mobile, wheelchair bound. Basically, they rely on other people to fetch and carry for them. There's no other family or friends nearby, or what friends and family there are nearby, they have very little contact with. And as rude as this sounds, some of us are very gullible. You know, some of us would buy ice from an Eskimo. And some of us are very easily influenced, especially if we've never had a bad experience in our lives. We're very trusting. We're trusting by nature. We want to trust people. We want to believe people. Unless you're a frazzled police officer like I am and you don't trust anybody. And I'm not sure that's such a good thing. We have, as we get older, we become physically less able to do things. We deteriorate physically and mentally too, psychologically. You know, it's a fact. It's not going to go away. Older people can be specifically targeted by these bad people, by scammers. They have what they call a suckers list. And I'll give you a little bit of a case history. It's an older lady that lives not too far from here, just outside Delhi. She was accustomed to giving a lot of money to charity. And she gave a lot of money to religious charities because she was a very religious lady. And unfortunately, some of the charities that she gave money to weren't as legal as she thought they were. They weren't as honest as she thought they were. So they keep sending her, requests for, can you send me $50 a month? Can you send me $10 a month? Just send me whatever you can afford. And then what happens is when they get her hooked in, they send her name to other agencies. And then the amount of mail that this lady got, she spent a lot of money. Her family actually intervened at the $250,000 mark. A lot of money, yeah. And sometimes, as we get old, we have caregivers that we think we can trust. These could be in the form of our children, who we ought to be able to trust, but unfortunately, they are less reputable than we believe them to be. And just as a point, in fact, here, abuse of elderly people is most commonly performed by family members, and unfortunately, the family member who is most likely to abuse an elder person is a son, closely followed by a daughter, but a son is highest on the list. Okay, just so you know. That's not to say that all sons are going to abuse. There's some great sons out there, but that's statistically who abuses. So who are the abusers? Family members are the usual suspects. It's unfortunate, but it's the case. Caregivers, strangers. How can a stranger be an abuser? Somebody's got to have an idea. How can a stranger be an abuser? Scam? Who said that? Perfect. High pressure to buy something. Yeah. They come to your door. They knock on your door. It's a high pressure sale. They meet you in a mall. They arrange to come back and sell you something after the fact. Coffee shops, they befriend you. And before you know it, that stranger, who really is a stranger, no matter how long you think you've known them for, a month before they may hit you with the scam, they are really a stranger and they have no emotional investment in you. Professionals, now, I want you to take note of this part here. Look who's not up there. Police officers aren't up there. Okay? Does that mean you can trust every police officer that you come across? No, it doesn't. But professionals can be abusers. Bankers, lawyers, accountants, doctors. Why? Because they have opportunity. That's why. They're looking at your personal files, your personal records. Non-institutional financial advisors. That can be the person in the mall who you seek out. It can be a tax man at the end of every year. Sometimes they'll present themselves as financial advisors. Vulnerability is the key. All these people that we've talked about are in a position to see your weakness and to take advantage of you and me. Okay? So signs of financial abuse. Any idea what some signs would be?
Overpricing on a job, yeah.
But how are you going to know as an elderly person, or how is your family going to know that you may have been the target of some form of financial abuse? Think about it. We had a
Your finances are trending downward.
Absolutely. There's some changes in your bank account. And the lady, the Royal Bank lady, spoke about that earlier. So taking money from an elderly person's bank account, that's one of the first forms of abuse. And unless we're diligent and we pay attention to what we have in the bank, or a caregiver pays attention to what we have in the bank on our behalf, we're going to lose it. Selling an elderly person's property or transferring property inappropriately. How can that happen? How can somebody just sell my house without me knowing? It could be that, you know, an older person's sick, a daughter or a family member comes in and says, you know, Mom, I need you to sign these papers, we got to get some things taken care of. And I, as a sick person, don't really know what I'm signing, really maybe in some beginning signs of dementia, and I sign the papers without knowing, and really it's a transfer of deed. Okay. Another very common process is if you have, the trend has been for us older folks to put people on our bank accounts and our deed as a joint holder. What happens is a lot of older people will be encouraged by family members, and it was a bit of a trend for banks to do it in the past, although thank goodness they don't do this anymore, to say, you know what, you should put your child on your bank account as a joint holder, because when you die, what historically happens is if there's nobody as a joint account holder, your accounts get frozen. Okay, most banks are pretty good at you know, allowing certain bills and fees to be paid. For example, your funeral, hydro bills, and normal monthly bills that would come in, the bank would probably go ahead and pay them. However, family members routinely have the disadvantage of not being able to access that account because it's frozen. So in the past, people have suggested, you know what, you should put your kid on your account, because it makes it easier when you die. They can get your money right away, and they don't have to pay that fee that everyone pays, right? When somebody dies, that we all think is an astronomical forfeiture that we're going to pay on our estate. It's actually 1.5% that you pay, that's all. 1.5%. It's nothing, and it protects you while you're living. So it's worth, you know, having that account in only your name. Same with your deed, only in your name. We haven't had a case in Norfolk County, but I'm you know, constantly talking to elder abuse experts in other areas, in other police services, and in Hamilton, I know they've had several cases where an elderly person has had someone, usually a child, as a joint holder on a deed, and the child gets into some financial difficulties. Usually it's through drug addiction or alcoholism. Gambling is a big thing. And they get into so much debt that they go ahead and sell the house right from under the old person's nose. And then all of a sudden, you know, sheriffs show up to evict the old person because they don't live there anymore. They don't have any legal right to be there. So where does that old person go? We end up on the street. So, you know, it's good to guard against transferring property or putting anyone else on your deed. The bank lady talked about credit card use. Protect your credit card like it's your heartbeat. Don't let anyone know your PIN number. There's no reason to. Don't ever let anyone sign on your behalf. There's no reason to. Yesterday, the Royal Bank lady said that if you have issues with, let's say for example, you get really sick and you need someone to get money for you, rather than give someone your credit card or your debit card and have them go to the bank, now you've given them your PIN number, and draw money out for you, write them a check. Phone the bank and let the bank know that they're coming with a check. Be careful to give out loans that will never be repaid. This is very common when we're dealing with families, right? We tend to be a little soft with our kids. And misuse of power of attorney is very common. Just to give you a legal note here, a power of attorney, if anyone has a power of attorney, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the different types because I'm sure the legal representative is going to do that. However, if you are a power of attorney or if you have a power of attorney, from a legal standpoint, your power of attorney has a responsibility to keep records of any transactions carried out on behalf of the person that you're caring for. And those transactions can only be in the form that benefit the person that you're buying for. So for example, if you went out and bought a Rolls Royce because that person needed transporting every week to the grocery store, that might be viewed as a little bit of a inappropriate purchase, okay? If you go out and buy yourself a nice mink fur coat, again, that could be viewed as a little bit of an inappropriate purchase. It has to benefit the person themselves. New friends. I've got a little clip at the end. Hopefully it'll work today. This is a big, big thing, especially if you go to malls and coffee shops. Young people are targeting old people. They know you're lonely. They will target you, befriend you. They'll come to the house and do all kinds of jobs for you. And then at some point you start to repay them. And repeated visits to the home by sellers. Unfortunately, once they have you on that sucker list, they don't let you go. So beware of that, please. So signs of financial abuse, usually banking. The bank lady talked about that. Keep a close eye on your bank records. ATM use is inconsistent with the customer profile. And you can see that yourself. The bank can also see that. So generally what happens these days, because the bank does have some legal responsibility to protect its customers now, if a bank sees some inconsistent spending, they will actually contact you as the card holder. It never is by email. I'm just going to throw that one out there. It's usually by a phone call, and they will ask you to come to the bank so they can talk to you face to face. Unusual or frequent cash withdrawals, same thing, credit card activity. Liquidating assets where penalties are incurred. And the most common one would be RSPs. So a person who is a power of attorney or has access to your funds is going to liquidate some of your funds that would incur penalties. The bank would see that and think, wow, that's kind of strange. They don't normally do that. Changing account holders or adding a new signer, and beneficiary designation changes. Oh, sorry. That's a big one. Basically, you meet a new friend. You have this new friend around for a while, and all of a sudden, this new friend becomes more important to you than your family. And you suddenly designate your assets to that new friend with the exclusion of your family. It happens all the time. A direct complaint from a customer or a theft of financial abuse at a banking institution. And again, this would go hand in hand with complaints to police. So some signs of financial abuse, legal. They try to provide, so for example, what that means is I'm an older person, I'm 75, 80 years old. My mobility is compromised a little bit, I can't get around as easily as I used to. I have a friend or a family member that takes me to the bank, makes a phone call to the bank on my behalf, passes the phone to me. I always deal with the same bank representative, so the bank representative knows it's Linda. You know, I know I'm talking to because she's got that weird accent. She might ask me a few security questions to confirm it's me, but then what she doesn't realize is my phone's on speakerphone, and when she's asking me questions, Billy Bob here sitting next to me is giving me the answers to tell her. Okay, that's what that means. So beware of that as well. If the client's brought into the office by someone else, so if you're in a situation where you have to talk to your banker or you have to talk to your lawyer, and lawyers are very, very aware of this these days, and you know, are actually removing people from their offices, and banks are doing the same thing. But we always get good and bad in every profession that we deal with. So I want you to be aware of the fact that if you go to an office, a lawyer's office, a banker's office, anyone's office, and someone insists on being there with you, you have a right to tell them, my business is private. I do not wish you to be sitting here with me. Okay? You have a right to do that. And again, they don't have the right to sit on in the meeting. They do not have the right to speak for you or provide instructions on your behalf. We as an aging population, we have to be strong and say, you know what, get out of the office. This is my business. They have an unusual interest in financial matters. This is very common for family members. They haven't cared about what the heck you've had for the last 20 years. But now, you know, you're 85 and you're on your deathbed. Suddenly, they want to know everything that you've got. And there is an element of, you know, investment in them knowing what you have and what they're likely to inherit, but they don't need to know all the nitty-gritty. Documents in possession of another individual. Remember, your documents are yours. Your bank records are yours. Your deed is yours. Your driver's license is yours. Would you give your driver's license to someone and say, here, use that whichever way you want? Why? And is it legal? No. And it should be illegal to give someone your bank documents. It isn't. Hopefully that will come someday. Will or power of attorney changes being requested. If you are you have an elderly person in your care, and suddenly there's been a will or a power of attorney change, some red flags should be going up for you when there's no reason for that to happen. And if they suddenly incur some debt, and I'll give you an example of that. I'm not going to give names. There is a case here in Delhi that I dealt with earlier this year. It's an elderly male who had a cold door knock. This company seemed to know that it was time for his filtration system to be changed for his water. He's on a well. And the water in certain areas of Delhi is not that great. It has a very strong sulfur smell. So what happened was this salesperson showed up in a nice suit, nice shiny shoes, spoke very well, and managed to convince this gentleman that he could sell him the top rate, #1 filtration system. It was about 5 or 6 different units. And it would only cost him a minimal amount, about $8,000 or $9,000. Pretty good deal, the guy thought. So, sign me up. So he signs him up, and what he doesn't realize is each time he buys a product, the letterhead for the business is changed a little bit. So it changes from, starts out Global Water Incorporated, then it changes to Global Water International, and then International Global Water. It's not enough for to really be noticeable, but as a police officer, when I got the file, that was one of the first things that I noticed. So over a course of a few months, this gentleman incurred a debt of $55,000 and had no water system that worked. Thankfully, a Good Samaritan took pity on him and paid for the installment of town water. It cost around $8,000. But unfortunately, part of this $55,000 debt that was incurred, some of it was to a private financial company that had an interest rate of 29.9%. He borrowed, I think, $14,000. And after a few months, this representative from this water company came back and he said, you know what, Mr. X, that loan that I helped you set up, and he did literally help him set up this loan over the phone, that loan that I helped you set up, the interest rate is really high. So why don't we go to your bank and we'll open a line of credit, because the line of credit is only 6%. Good idea. So they go to the bank, they open up a line of credit, and the water scam guy says, now you sign a check, make it out to me, and for $12,000, because that's what's left on your loan, and you pay it to me, my name, I'll pay it into my bank account, and then later today I'll write another check from my bank account and I'll pay the finance company. You know, this elderly gentleman, he really trusted this water scam guy, because this water scam guy had spent a lot of time at his house. He had made himself a friend. He wasn't a businessman anymore, he was a friend. This is what happened. But unfortunately, the last part of that process, where the water scam guy signed a check to the financial company, didn't happen. So a few months later, Mr. X sees that these payments, financial payments, is still coming out of his bank account. So he cancels. He phones the bank and he says, They're scamming me. Cancel those payments. I don't want you to pay any more money to that financial company. So the bank does. Well, a few months later, he gets civil litigation. He's now being sued civilly. So he owes $55,000 plus $27,000 plus civil litigation fees. Now, there has been some solution to this in the last few days. The financial institution took him to court. They won the case. However, because this gentleman really has no money, he only has to pay a portion of that $27,000. He's going to end up paying $6,000. From my criminal investigation component, that $55,000 that he paid to the water company, I will likely be able to get maybe 50% of that back for him at the most, because usually that's all we are able to get back, if anything at all. Okay?
So what happened to the water scam guy?
The water scam guy has been charged. He's in criminal court. He's been charged with several counts of criminal offenses. What will happen? I don't know. Prison time? I'm hoping so. This gentleman has done this before in other areas, so we're hoping that we can get some jail time. But to be honest, you know, the justice system is weak at best. You know, these people go to jail. They get time off for good behavior, and they come out. They change their water company name, or they develop a different company. It could be a concrete company, it could be electrical company. And unless you're able to go on the internet and do some research to check on these people, you're never going to know. Because believe me, they could sell ice to Eskimos too. Okay? So estate problems, unfortunately, these issues are usually discovered after someone dies. And then what happens is great expenses incurred to the family, because they have to, you know, hire lawyers and pay huge fees to lawyers to resolve these litigations that are discovered after death. Joint account designations, we talked about that a little bit. If you give someone a joint account authority over anything that you own, they can take it away from you. Okay? If you give me a joint account signing authority on your bank account and you have $1,000 in your bank account, I can go out later today and withdraw that $1,000, and you can't do anything about it, and you can't make me pay you back because you gave me the legal right to go and take money out of that bank account. So remember that. Beneficiary designation changes, we already talked about that. Power of attorney abuse. I think I already mentioned that if you are a power of attorney, you have to keep records. There is a theft charge for a power of attorney. It's section 331 of the criminal code. It's different to common theft. It's a long haul process for a police officer to prove a theft by power of attorney. It involves warrants and bank records, and it's not going to happen overnight. It takes me several months to get that stuff. You know, and I can write 3 or 4 production orders and still not get what I really want, and then write another 3 or 4 production orders before I do get what I want. Undue influence regarding will changes come to light. So for example, we have a case right now of an elderly gentleman in the area. He's very wealthy. He has 2 businesses. His sons co-run the businesses with him. He suddenly has a financial advisor that he hired 6 months ago. There's a lot of money going to this financial advisor, and nobody can see why. You know, it's a difficult task for me to prove that a criminal offense has occurred. Possessions, jewelry, antiques that go missing. These people come into your home and they make friends with you, and then suddenly 6 months later you go, oh, where's my old wedding ring, you know? Do you remember, Stan, that you bought me that new wedding ring because my old one didn't fit anymore, it's too big, and it was in my china cabinet? Where the heck is it? I haven't seen it for a while. How do you prove who took it when you don't know it's missing right away? Okay? So prevention. How do you prevent some of this stuff? Well, you call the police when something has actually happened, like a fraud or a theft, forgery, extortion. Does everyone understand what extortion is? Yeah? I'll give you a brief overview. Extortion is So for example, a very common form of extortion these days is with young people. So they'll go on the internet and they'll be somehow convinced to provide a photograph of themselves topless. So, and they send this photograph to someone who is potentially an abuser. And then that abuser will say, if you don't send me full photographs of you naked, I'm going to post your pictures all over the internet. That's an example of extortion. It's an extreme example, but that would be an example. With an elderly person, it could be, you gave me $1,000 last month and you told me you didn't want your kids to know. Well, if you don't give me another $1,000, I'm going to tell your kids. And unfortunately, as we get older, we become more and more afraid of being ostracized by our children, and we usually will fall prey to the extortion. If you do call the police, all your interviews are confidential. Whatever you tell me as a police officer is going to stay with me. If you don't want me to tell your kids, I won't tell your kids. Any instructions from a client or a customer should be direct and not through third parties. So if you have a bank manager or a bank account manager that is willing to take instructions from someone else on your behalf, you need to be changing that bank account manager. Review your documents frequently. Confront your suspected abuser. If you can't do it, call me and I'll do it for you. Okay? Involve other family members or friends. Report any inconsistencies to public guardian trustee. Public guardian trustee, everybody gets really scared of them because they say, oh, they're such bad people and they're going to take all my money away. They really are not bad people. They really will not work. They won't take over accounts unless you don't have any family or any trusted people around you. But the good thing about public guardian trustee is they frequently have access to more documentation than the police can get, and they will carry out investigations on your behalf if you contact them. Okay? The other thing with public guardian trustee is that if there's an issue of capability, so if you believe a person has diminished capacity, then they really will get heavily involved. And make any reference to appropriate agencies. Just a note to go back, when the bank lady was talking about the grandparents scam, this has happened quite a bit in Norfolk County. We've only had a few victims that have fallen prey to it so far, but there's been many attempts. Thankfully, people do call us, even if an attempt has not been successful, and they let us know. We like to know what scams are going on in the area. If I arrest someone and I have them in jail and they want a surety, I'm going to call you and say, is this Grandma Sue? I have your grandson Thomas in custody. And I'm going to ask you a few questions.